You had him in cuffs 12 minutes ago. Why wasn't I called? My team's been chasing this guy for 6 months.
I don't answer to the bureau agent. I answer to the victim on the sidewalk bleeding out, and I secured that first.
He's federal property now. Open the door. I'm taking him.
Negative. Until my lieutenant clears it, he stays in my car.
Chain of custody matters.
You see the red and blue lights in your mirror. The siren screams behind you. But this isn't a normal stop, because you're not just anyone. You're a federal agent. Badge in your wallet. Credentials in your jacket. You've spent years enforcing the law, but tonight the law is looking straight back at you, and it doesn't care who you are. It's a dark stretch of highway. The clock reads 11:42 p.m. The rain hasn't stopped for hours. You pull over, roll down the window, and wait for the officer to approach. He's calm. Too calm. You can see it in his stride, the way he already knows this won't be routine. He's wearing a chest cam, light blinking red. Everything you say, every move you make is being recorded. You tell him your name. You tell him your agency. But instead of recognition, there's something else in his eyes. Defiance. He leans closer and says it's all being broadcast. Right now. Live feed, public channel, thousands watching. The power shifts in an instant. You feel your authority dissolve. You feel the camera staring through you. He asks why a federal vehicle is parked near a restricted construction site 2 miles back. You hesitate. He doesn't, because when the truth finally comes out tonight, it won't be in private. It'll be live, and the world won't be watching justice. They'll be watching you. Rain fell in relentless sheets over Route 67, the kind of storm that swallowed light and sound alike. The highway stretched empty, slick and black, cutting through the outskirts of Silverton, a small town pressed between forest and industrial decay. It was the kind of place where people didn't ask questions. But that silence had limits, and tonight it was about to break. Special Agent Ryan Cole had been driving for nearly an hour. The wipers beat back and forth in a mechanical rhythm that matched the pulse behind his temples. The dashboard clock glowed 11:42 p.m. His hands tightened on the wheel of the government-issued black sedan, its windshield streaked with mud and water. He was supposed to be off duty, supposed to be heading home after a long week of fieldwork and paperwork stacked higher than his patience. But an anonymous text had pulled him from his couch, from the half-eaten dinner and the sound of his phone buzzing with missed calls from the Bureau's regional office. The message had read, "If you want answers about Silverton construction, go now. Midnight, North Access Road." No name. No context. Just that. He shouldn't have gone. He knew that. But instinct drove him more than protocol ever did. And now, here he was, alone in the storm, replaying every decision that led him here. He slowed as the road narrowed into a dirt turnoff. The GPS showed nothing but gray static. To his left, an unfinished overpass loomed like a skeleton against the night sky. Massive steel beams half rusted and forgotten. Construction equipment sat abandoned in puddles. Floodlights blinked faintly in the distance, powered by generators that hummed like insects. Cole eased the car forward, headlights cutting through the rain. He parked near a cluster of concrete barriers, engine running, eyes scanning the dark. No movement. No sign of anyone waiting. He checked his phone again. The message was gone, deleted automatically. A chill crawled up his spine. He reached into his jacket, feeling the weight of his badge and sidearm. The familiarity steadied him. He stepped out into the rain, coat pulled tight, boots sinking into mud. The sound of water drumming on metal drowned everything else. He moved carefully between the equipment, flashlight slicing through fog. The air smelled of oil, wet cement, and something else. Something metallic and faintly chemical. Then he saw it. A white van parked beneath the unfinished bridge, half hidden by the concrete support beams. The rear doors were open. Inside, a cluster of monitors flickered in blue light, displaying security feeds from multiple angles. Construction site, road, perimeter fence, each camera labeled with precise coordinates. Cole stepped closer, wiping rain from his eyes, and then the monitors changed. The feeds went dark for a second, then blinked back to life, now showing him, his own figure, drenched and motionless, standing in the middle of the frame. The view zoomed slightly, as if someone was controlling the cameras remotely. A voice echoed from behind him. "Federal Agent Ryan Cole," it said. "Didn't expect you to take the bait." Cole spun. Flashlight beam cutting through the rain, but no one was there. The sound came again, this time from a small speaker attached to the van's console. "You were told to stay away from this investigation." Cole's jaw tightened. "Who is this?" The voice ignored the question. "You're standing on evidence you were never cleared to see." He stepped forward, scanning the monitors again. The feed zoomed tighter, flickering. One showed the image of a man in a hard hat speaking with uniformed officers, time-stamped from 2 nights earlier. The location matched the same site. Another showed the same man loading sealed crates into a marked police truck. Cole's stomach turned. The department was involved. He reached for his phone to capture the footage, but the moment he lifted it, the screens went black. Then headlights exploded in the distance. He turned sharply, shielding his eyes. A patrol car approached fast, tires slicing through water. It screeched to a stop, lights flashing. 2 officers stepped out. Cole felt a mix of relief and suspicion. The first officer was tall, lean, mid-30s. The second, heavier, stayed by the driver's door. Their uniforms bore the Silverton police patch. The tall one called out over the rain, "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Cole raised a hand. "Special Agent Ryan Cole, FBI." He flashed his badge through the rain. "This is a federal investigation." The officer kept walking forward, flashlight steady. "We've had reports of trespassing on restricted property." "This site's part of an ongoing federal case," Cole said firmly. "You're interfering with—" "Turn around and keep your hands visible," the officer interrupted. Cole froze. "I just identified myself." The officer's hand rested on his holster. "Then you won't mind cooperating, Agent." The tone wasn't procedural. It was deliberate. Cole's instincts flared. Something about the way the officer moved, the way his partner lingered near the patrol car. It wasn't right. He stepped back slightly, rain soaking through his collar. "What's this about?" The tall officer didn't answer. He nodded to the other. The heavier one opened the cruiser door, revealing a mounted camera with a blinking red light. Live stream. Cole's pulse spiked. "You're broadcasting this?" The officer smirked. "Transparency's important these days." The camera panned toward him, catching the FBI badge gleaming under the rain. The tall officer spoke louder now, his tone performative. "Federal agent found trespassing on restricted land. Possible interference with local investigation." Cole's mind raced. He glanced toward the van. The monitors were dead, but the evidence was still inside. He couldn't let them take it. "Step away from the vehicle," the officer repeated. Cole stayed still. "You have no jurisdiction here." "Neither do you." Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating their faces for a split second. The tall officer's eyes were cold, calculating. He wasn't here to question. He was here to stage something. Cole's training kicked in. He lifted his badge higher, voice controlled. "Everything you're doing is on record. If you want to make a mistake, keep going." The officer tilted his head. "Oh, it's already recording." He gestured to the camera again, and that's when Cole realized the live feed wasn't just for their department. The stream title visible in the corner of the cruiser monitor read Public Accountability Network. Silverton Police Live. Hundreds were watching. Maybe thousands. The officer smiled faintly. "Tell the world what you're doing here, Agent." Cole took a breath. Rain dripped from his jaw, his shirt plastered to his back. Every move he made now mattered. Every word would be dissected later. "I'm here," he said slowly, "because your department is under investigation for evidence tampering, illegal transport, and obstruction of federal property." The other officer froze. The tall one's smile vanished. For a long second, no one moved. Then the tall officer said quietly, "You shouldn't have said that." Before Cole could react, the heavier one reached for his radio. Static crackled. More sirens wailed in the distance. Backup was coming. Cole's eyes darted toward the van. If they got to it first, everything, the proof, the footage, the files, would vanish. He had seconds. He took one step back. The tall officer's hand dropped to his holster. "Don't," Cole said sharply. The officer hesitated, caught between caution and performance. The live-stream camera panned again, catching every twitch of motion, every flicker of light. Cole turned, lunged for the van door, and grabbed the nearest hard drive from the console. He slipped it inside his jacket just as the officer shouted behind him, "Hands up! Step back!" He spun to face them, empty hands raised now. "I'm complying," he said, voice calm. The tall officer moved in, cuffs ready. The other circled wide, muttering something into his radio. Cole could feel the camera still trained on him, broadcasting every drop of rain, every breath, and then, just before they reached him, a new sound cut through the storm, the whine of another siren, higher pitched, closing fast. A second cruiser appeared at the end of the access road, its headlights cutting through the fog like a blade. The first officer paused, confused. Who called for backup? The second cruiser stopped abruptly. Two figures stepped out, both in plain clothes. One raised a badge toward the light. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," the man said, voice clear and sharp over the rain. "Step away from him." The live-stream camera caught everything. The frozen faces, the hesitation, the dawning realization. Cole exhaled once, steady, as the new agents closed in. But the relief didn't last. Because in the confusion, the tall officer whispered something under his breath to his partner, and as the rain poured harder, the partner reached quietly into the patrol car and tapped the dashboard. The live-stream title changed. It now read, "Federal Cover-Up in Progress," and the view count doubled in seconds. The storm hadn't moved an inch. The rain came down harder, as if the sky itself refused to look away. Sirens wailed in every direction now, echoing through the empty industrial stretch north of Silverton. The air smelled of ozone and wet asphalt. And under that sound, the sound of chaos, a quiet war was about to begin. Agent Ryan Cole stood in the glare of headlights, soaked, motionless, every muscle tight. The cuffs bit into his wrists as the tall officer finished locking them. Across from him, two federal agents from the Bureau's Internal Oversight Unit were shouting orders over the storm, demanding that local officers stand down. No one moved. The body cameras blinked red. The patrol car's dash feed streamed live to thousands. In the corner of the screen, the words "Federal Cover-Up in Progress" pulsed brighter with every second. Comments were flooding in, angry, confused, explosive. "Step away from the federal agent," one of the oversight agents barked. "You're obstructing an investigation." The tall officer turned slightly, rain dripping from his hat brim. "This is a local matter. Your agent was trespassing on restricted property." The oversight agent, a woman named Victoria Haynes, stepped closer. "And you're broadcasting an illegal detainment of a federal officer. You want to explain that to a judge?" Her tone was low, but it carried weight. The tall officer's jaw tightened. His partner shifted uneasily. Cole didn't say a word. He didn't trust himself to. Every word spoken here would echo far beyond this site. The silence broke when the other federal agent, the younger one, pulled his phone from his pocket. "The live feed's already gone viral," he said quietly. "News outlets are mirroring it. Hashtags, commentary, the works. It's not just local anymore." The tall officer's expression didn't change. "Then everyone can see who's breaking the law tonight." Haynes stepped forward, rain plastering her hair to her face. "Turn off your camera." He didn't. Instead, he looked straight into it. "Viewers, take note. This is what happens when federal agents interfere with state jurisdiction." Cole could see it in his eyes. He wasn't acting alone. This wasn't improvisation. It was strategy. Haynes pulled a folded paper from her coat pocket, holding it up. "Federal warrant, signed by Judge Klein. This site and everything on it is under Bureau jurisdiction." "You're out of line." The tall officer's smile vanished. For the first time, his confidence cracked, but before anyone could react, a low rumble cut through the storm. It wasn't thunder. It was engines. 3 more cruisers appeared at the end of the access road, their lights flaring red and blue through the sheets of rain. "Back up," the younger agent muttered. Haynes turned sharply. You didn't call anyone, did you? No, the tall officer didn't move. You've got no idea what you've walked into. Cole felt the cold settle deep in his chest. The timing wasn't coincidence. The live stream, the call, the narrative was already set. Federal agents bullying locals, overstepping boundaries. The optics were perfect for whoever orchestrated this. The new cruisers rolled to a stop. A man stepped out from the first, older, heavy-set with captain's bars on his collar. His voice carried over the rain. What the hell's going on here? Captain Myers, the tall officer called. Federal interference. Agent trespassing. Trying to seize local property. Haynes started to protest, but the captain raised a hand. I don't care who you are. You shut down my site, you answer to me. Your site? She repeated. Town contract, Myers said flatly. Infrastructure work. Not your business. Cole felt the words hit like a strike. The construction site wasn't just a cover-up, it was ownership. Myers had a stake in it. Haynes's voice dropped, calm and dangerous. You're under federal investigation, Captain. He stared at her for a long moment, then at the blinking live stream camera still mounted to the cruiser. No, he said softly. You're under public one. He turned toward the officers. Cuff them all. The order cut through the rain like a gunshot. For a second, no one moved. Then boots splashed against puddles, flashlights darting, hands gripping holsters. Cole twisted slightly, testing the cuffs. They held tight. He looked to Haynes. Her jaw was set, calculating. She wasn't afraid, just focused. Ryan, she said under her breath, when I say move, move. He nodded once. The officers closed in, 5 against 2. The younger federal agent raised his badge, but Myers brushed past him. Badge means nothing here, the captain said. Lightning flashed, white, searing, and in that brief instant, Haynes moved. She slammed her shoulder into the officer holding Cole, knocking him sideways. Cole dropped low, twisting his wrists against the cuffs until the wet metal slipped. His hands came free. Go! Haynes shouted. Cole bolted toward the van. Shots weren't fired, but radios crackled, voices shouting. The camera still streamed everything, the lens following chaos. He reached the van, yanked the passenger door open, and dove inside. The monitors were still black, but the drives, 3 of them, were mounted to the console. He ripped them free, shoving them inside his jacket. Outside, chaos. Flashlights swaying. Orders shouted. Tires spinning in the mud. Then a voice over the speaker. Agent Cole, step out. You're escalating this situation, he froze. The voice wasn't local. It wasn't Myers. It came from the bureau frequency. He grabbed the radio on the dashboard. Cole here. Ryan, it's Director Shaw, the voice said. Stand down. You're live on every major outlet. We can't control this. Walk away, Cole's heartbeat thundered. They're destroying evidence. You pull me out now, it's gone. Walk. Away. Static crackled, then silence. Outside, the officers regrouped, blocking the exit. The livestream feed's comment section scrolled faster than the camera could render. Every second that passed was being dissected by a watching nation. Haynes was still holding her ground, soaked to the bone, badge in hand. The younger agent was pinned against the cruiser hood. Cole clenched his jaw, made his choice, and stepped out of the van. He raised his hands slowly. The drives pressed cold against his ribs. The tall officer smirked. Finally listening. Not to you, Cole said quietly. Good, the officer said. Because now you'll listen to them. He pointed to the camera where a live news feed had replaced the raw stream. On screen, a polished anchor's voice cut through the noise. Breaking news tonight out of Silverton, where an FBI agent was detained after interfering with a local investigation. Federal misconduct is suspected. This comes amid growing tension between state law enforcement and federal oversight divisions. Cole's throat tightened. The narrative was already rewritten, while he was still standing there. Haynes turned toward the sound, realization dawning in her eyes. They're controlling the feed. The tall officer leaned close. We warned you, Agent. You came looking for answers. Now everyone's going to see yours. Before she could respond, the captain's radio crackled. Package secured. Moving the files now. Cole's mind raced. They were taking something. Maybe more evidence, maybe the rest of the drives. He glanced at Haynes, and she gave a slight nod. He lunged forward. In an instant, chaos erupted again. Mud, shouts, rain, flashlights cutting through the dark. Cole slammed into the captain, knocking the radio loose. Haynes grabbed it midair and shouted into it, "Federal seizure in progress, repeat, federal seizure in progress." The sound echoed over every open frequency, and that was the moment everything shifted. The Bureau's encrypted channels lit up. Dozens of field units received the alert. Across 3 states, federal vehicles began moving. The storm outside Silverton wasn't just weather anymore. It was the sound of a government waking up. Cole and Haynes fought through the confusion, slipping behind the van as more sirens grew louder in the distance. The tall officer reached for his weapon, but Myers stopped him. "No guns," the captain growled. "Not on camera." Cole glanced once at the cruiser screen. The live stream title had changed again. Federal Agents Resisting Arrest. He realized then that there was no winning the narrative tonight. The only win was survival, and keeping those drives safe. Haynes looked at him. "You got them?" He nodded once. "Then we run." They bolted into the darkness, cutting through the skeletal framework of the unfinished overpass. The rain swallowed them whole. Behind them, the police shouted, the cameras followed, and the nation kept watching. But somewhere inside that chaos, hidden under the roar of water and the static of broken comms, truth was still alive. And Ryan Cole wasn't finished yet. The forest swallowed them. Rain hammered through the canopy, turning dirt to black water and breath to steam. Each step felt heavier, slower. Flashlights cut across the tree line behind them. Thin, white beams hunting through the dark. The sound of pursuit echoed off the drenched earth. Boots splashing, radios crackling. Ryan Cole's lungs burned, his pulse steady and fast. He could feel the drives inside his jacket pressing against his ribs. The evidence, 3 small blocks of metal and data, was all that mattered now. Haynes ran just behind him, her movements precise, her breathing controlled. She'd lost her hat somewhere in the chaos. Her hair clung to her face in wet strands. Every few seconds, she glanced back to check distance. The lights behind them were getting closer. "Keep moving," Cole said quietly. "I'm not the one slowing down," she shot back, voice low. They reached a ridge where the forest broke open into a small clearing. A narrow stream cut across the mud. Beyond it, a set of rusted chain-link fences rose against the slope. An old service access road, forgotten and overgrown. Cole pointed. "Through there!" They waded across the stream, the icy water biting through soaked clothes. Haynes pushed through the fence first, metal scraping against her jacket. Cole followed, pulling the torn wire shut behind them. The lights behind the trees slowed, scanning. Voices carried faintly through the storm. "They'll split up," Haynes whispered. "Good," Cole said. "Let them spread thin." They ducked beneath a fallen beam, emerging onto a cracked stretch of service road that twisted uphill. The rain was easing slightly now, turning to mist. The storm had moved inland, leaving behind a heavy silence broken only by the distant hiss of traffic from the main highway. Cole checked his phone. No signal. The Bureau's secure line was dead. The GPS had frozen miles back. "They'll jam the towers," he muttered. "Then we stay dark until we can transmit from somewhere clean," Haynes said. Cole nodded. "Safe house in Ridgefield, 20 miles north. I can get us there if—" He stopped mid-sentence. Ahead, on the shoulder of the cracked road, a single vehicle sat idling. Headlights off, engine humming low. Haynes froze beside him. "You expecting company?" "No." They moved cautiously, approaching from the blind side. The rain had left a sheen over the windshield, blurring the interior. Cole drew closer, gun low but ready. He tapped the glass. No response. He pulled the door open slowly, gun raised. Inside, the driver slumped against the wheel, dead. No blood, no struggle, just gone. His uniform identified him as one of Silverton's officers. On the passenger seat lay a police radio, still on. A voice crackled faintly through it. Unit 4? Status. Cole grabbed the radio. Unit 4's down. Who is this? Static. Then silence. He turned to Haynes. They're cleaning house, she nodded grimly. We're not dealing with local corruption anymore. This goes higher. Cole looked at the dash. A small body cam sat mounted to the mirror, still recording. He hit playback. The screen flickered to life. The video showed the officer sitting in the same spot, talking quietly to someone off-screen. Captain said it's done. They're moving the crates tonight. Everything goes out under federal shipment clearance. Nobody checks manifests if it says confidential. A voice from off-screen responded. Low, calm, unmistakably familiar. Cole froze. It was Director Shaw. Make sure nothing gets traced back to Silverton PD, Shaw's voice said. We'll handle it from the top. Anyone who resists, discredit them. Make it public. The feed cut. Cole stood motionless, the weight of betrayal crashing down like the storm itself. The director, his own superior, had orchestrated the setup. Haynes stared at the screen. He used you, she said quietly. Used the live stream to bury the Bureau's own tracks. Cole clenched his fists. They needed a distraction. Something public enough to draw attention away from the shipments. Shipments of what? He opened his jacket and pulled out one of the drives. Whatever's on here will tell us. Haynes scanned the tree line. Then we find out. But not here. They dumped the cruiser's keys, took the dead officer's carbine, and started north again. The road climbed through dense pine forest, winding toward the ridgeline. By the time they reached higher ground, the rain had slowed to a steady drizzle. Miles below, faint red and blue lights moved along the valley road, search teams sweeping outward. Haynes pointed toward a distant cluster of lights. Ridgefield's over that hill. If we cut through the quarry, we can reach the safe house before dawn. Cole nodded, adjusting the strap on his shoulder. Let's move. The quarry was a graveyard of machinery and silence. Floodlights sat dark, long since cut off. Pools of water reflected the gray sky. Every sound echoed too long, every footstep too loud. They crossed between piles of gravel and rusted conveyors, staying low. Haynes kept her weapon ready, her eyes scanning constant motion in the shadows. Halfway through, Cole stopped suddenly. Voices. He motioned her down. Two silhouettes stood near a truck on the far side of the pit. Both wore rain gear with tactical harnesses. Federal issue. Cole's jaw clenched. Shaw's people. The men were offloading crates marked property of the U.S. Department of Infrastructure. But the labels were false. Cole knew it. The identifiers on the sides matched the files he'd seen in the van. Same serial pattern. Same shipment tags. Each crate was stamped with a code. SX-44A. Haynes whispered, "You think it's weapons?" "No, something bigger." They watched as one of the men pried a crate open. Inside was a row of compact metal cylinders, sealed and labeled with radiation symbols. Cole's stomach dropped. Isotopes. Industrial grade. Used for power systems. Or dirty bombs. Jesus, Haynes breathed. They'd been diverting nuclear material under federal clearance. They're building something off record, Cole said. Or selling it. Before they could move, the truck's headlights flared on. One of the men turned, spotting their silhouettes against the quarry ridge. "Contact!" he shouted. Gunfire erupted instantly, ripping through the dark. Cole dove behind a loader, bullets sparking off the steel. Haynes returned fire, short and precise. The echoes bounced through the quarry like thunder. "Move!" Cole shouted. "Up the ridge!" They scrambled along the slope, dirt and rock slipping under their boots. Shots tore through the rain, close enough to feel. Haynes fired twice more, hitting the truck's front tire. It lurched sideways, engine sputtering. When they reached the top of the ridge, they ducked behind a boulder, catching their breath. Cole checked his weapon. Half a magazine left. "They'll call reinforcements." Haynes pointed toward the north side of the quarry. "There's a drainage tunnel. Leads to the riverbed. We can use it to reach Ridgefield." They sprinted across the ridge, keeping low. Gunfire echoed again, distant but chasing. By the time they reached the tunnel, the air smelled of rust and wet stone. Water ran through at ankle height, freezing cold. The tunnel stretched long and black ahead. Haynes grabbed a flashlight, flicked it on, and started forward. Cole followed, every sound amplified in the narrow space. Halfway through, his phone vibrated. Weak signal. Just enough for one bar. He opened the secure app and began uploading one of the drives. The progress bar crawled. 3%, 5, 7. Faster, he muttered. Haynes looked back. They'll trace that ping. I need to get at least one file out. Static hissed through the tunnel. Somewhere far behind, voices echoed. At 15%, the upload froze. Signal gone. Cole swore under his breath. We'll have to finish at the safe house. They pushed on. The tunnel opened into the riverbank on the far side of the ridge. The rain had eased into mist. A thin line of dawn began to push through the clouds. For the first time in hours, they could see clearly. Cole looked down the valley toward Ridgefield. The town's lights were faint in the distance. Haynes exhaled slowly. Almost there, but before they could move, a soft beep came from Cole's pocket. He froze. The drive. It was transmitting. A small green light pulsed, the device auto-linking to an external source. Someone was remotely accessing it. Haynes stared at it. That's not you, is it? No. The light flickered faster. Then the small speaker embedded in the drive crackled, and a voice emerged, distorted but unmistakable. Director Shaw? Ryan, you're making a mistake. Cole's blood ran cold. You think this is about corruption, Shaw continued. It's about control. Those materials are insurance. Without them, the Bureau loses leverage. Walk away, and you live. Upload that data, and you won't. The signal cut. The drive's light went dark. Cole threw it into the river. We'll find another way. Haynes stared at the rippling water. He's watching every move. Not the next one, Cole said quietly. Because now we're off-grid. They climbed the embankment toward the highway. A single car approached from the north. Headlights dim, speed steady. Cole raised his hand, signaling. The vehicle slowed. Inside, a man in civilian clothes rolled down the window. You two look like hell, he said. Cole recognized the voice instantly. Agent Ellis, former Bureau tech analyst. Ellis, Cole said. You got my ping? Yeah, Ellis replied. You've got the country watching you, Ryan. Shaw's rewriting everything. If we don't move fast, the Bureau's going to make you their villain. Cole nodded. Then let's make them watch the truth. They climbed into the car. The headlights turned north. Behind them, the quarry lights flickered again. More trucks arrived. Crates were being loaded for transport. The cover-up was still moving. As the car disappeared into the mist, the last thing Cole saw in the rearview mirror was a single flashing red light. Another camera, recording silently. But this time, he wasn't running from it. He was going to use it. The sun rose pale and colorless over Ridgefield. Morning light spread through the fog like smoke, thin and uncertain. It painted the wet asphalt gold, glinting off puddles and metal guardrails. The storm had broken, but the world hadn't quieted. Ryan Cole sat in the back of the sedan, staring out the window as the miles blurred past. He hadn't slept, neither had Haynes. The hum of the engine was the only sound between them. Ellis drove, one hand on the wheel, the other on a small device balanced on the dashboard. A signal interceptor, scanning for Bureau frequencies. They're searching the grid, Ellis said. Shaw's people are sweeping every channel. Your names are on the morning feed. The Bureau's calling it rogue field misconduct. Cole didn't respond. His mind replayed every frame of the live stream, every headline, every misdirection. The narrative was already poisoned, written before dawn. The Bureau was the victim now. He and Haynes were the criminals. Haynes leaned forward. How long until the safe house? 15 minutes, Ellis said. Old farmhouse west of the river. I kept it off the registry after I left the Bureau. No paper trail, Cole nodded slowly. Once we're there, we decrypt the drives. Then we go public. Haynes's eyes flicked toward him. Public? You mean broadcast? He turned from the window. Exactly that. Shaw weaponized transparency. We'll use the same tactic, Ellis smirked faintly. You're going to hijack their own network? Cole's stare was cold. We're not hiding anymore. The car rolled through the outskirts of Ridgefield. Quiet neighborhoods, gas stations, the distant spire of an old church. The world looked normal here, unaware of the war unfolding in its shadows. They turned down a gravel road lined with birch trees. The farmhouse sat at the end, a two-story structure with faded paint and boarded windows. Ellis pulled the car into the barn behind it. The moment the doors shut, silence pressed in. Inside, the air was dry and still. A makeshift command setup filled one corner. Old monitors, an antenna array, backup batteries. Ellis powered up the main terminal. This line's dark. Nobody can trace it. Plug in what you've got. Cole unzipped his jacket and pulled out the two remaining drives. One was still wet from the river, but the other blinked green, intact. He slotted it into the terminal. Code flooded the screen, encrypted data, unreadable without bureau keys. Ellis typed fast, pulling up an algorithm. I can crack the encryption, but it'll take time. How much? Haynes asked. An hour if I'm lucky. 2 if I'm not. Cole stood by the window watching the empty road. Every movement outside seemed too still, too deliberate. We don't have 2 hours, he said. They'll trace the power surge. Ellis didn't look up. Then you better pray this works. Minutes crawled by. The room hummed with machinery and tension. Rainwater dripped from their clothes onto the wooden floor. Cole's eyes stayed on the road. At 47 minutes, the code shifted. A new window appeared. Folder directories all labeled with coded tags, SX44A shipments, detainee records, internal memos, oversight control. Haynes stepped closer. Open the first one, Ellis clicked. The screen filled with images and manifests. Transport routes across state lines, containers marked as construction materials but tagged under nuclear registry identifiers. Each shipment signed by multiple bureau officials, including Director Shaw. Ellis exhaled sharply. They've been laundering government stockpiles, selling materials through private contractors. Cole leaned over the desk. Where? Ellis scrolled. 2 shipments to a defense subsidiary in Nevada. 1 to a facility in Mexico. But this one, he pointed to the screen. This one's local. Haynes read the label aloud. Silverton Power Cooperative. Cole froze. That's not a power station. No, Ellis said. It's a holding facility. Decommissioned in 2012. Cole's pulse quickened. Then that's where they're keeping the rest of it. He turned to Haynes. We end it there. Before she could respond, the monitors flickered. Static cut through the feed. The lights dimmed for a second. Ellis frowned. That's not me. The speakers crackled. A voice came through. Distorted, deliberate. You shouldn't have come this far, Ryan. Shaw. Cole's hand went to his weapon. How did you find us? Shaw's tone was almost calm. You think off-grid means invisible. Every device you've touched still carries your signature. You're not ghosts. You're just slow prey. Haynes reached for the power switch, but the speakers cut her off again. You've got one chance, Shaw said. Walk away. Destroy the data. I'll make sure this dies quietly. Cole stared at the monitors. And if I don't? The line went silent for a moment. Then Shaw spoke again. Then I'll finish what the live stream started. The feed went dead. Ellis cursed under his breath. He's tracing the signal. We've got maybe 10 minutes. Cole grabbed the drives. Then we move now. Where? Haynes demanded. Silverton Power. We expose it ourselves. He wants to control the story. Let's give him one he can't rewrite. They piled back into the car. Ellis stayed behind, rerouting the signal to buy time. You've got a head start, he said. Make it count. Cole met his eyes once. You're risking your life, Ellis shrugged. So are you. They drove hard, cutting back through Ridgefield toward Silverton. The sky had turned gray again, low clouds dragging over the horizon. The roads were nearly empty. Cole's knuckles were white on the wheel. At 9:23 a.m., they reached the outskirts of the old power cooperative. Fences topped with rusted wire circled the compound. The main building loomed like a bunker. Concrete, sealed windows, no guards visible. They parked half a mile away and continued on foot, moving through the wet grass and shadows. Haynes scanned the perimeter. No patrols. Either they cleared out or they're waiting inside. Cole found a service gate unlocked. Too easy, they slipped inside, keeping low. The air smelled of metal and ozone. Inside the main warehouse, rows of crates lined the floor, each stamped with the same federal insignia and code tags. Cole lifted a lid. More isotope containers. Hundreds of them. This isn't a cover-up, Haynes said quietly. It's stockpiling. A sound echoed through the hall. Footsteps. Cole signaled her to move left. They crouched behind a forklift as two men entered from the far door, carrying rifles. Not uniforms. Private contractors. Cole waited until they passed, then motioned to a metal stairwell. Control room. We broadcast from there. They climbed fast, every step echoing against steel. Inside the control room, dust covered the consoles, but the power grid still hummed. Cole found an old terminal and plugged in the drive. The monitors blinked to life. Signal, audio, connection. Haynes checked her watch. They'll intercept in minutes. That's enough, Cole said. We only need 1 minute. He hit transmit. The files began uploading. This time, not to the Bureau's server, but to every public network tied to the old livestream feed. The same audience that watched him fall would now watch the truth rise. 30 seconds. The data streamed fast. Images, manifests, emails, contracts, every line of proof. Then the door below slammed open. Contractors flooded in, rifles raised. Ryan! Haynes shouted. Keep it going! She took cover by the railing, firing short bursts to hold them back. Bullets tore through the control room windows. Sparks exploded across the panels. Cole ducked low, protecting the console with his body. The progress bar hit 80%, 90%. The power surged. The lights flickered, and then, just before the final packet sent, the console went black. A single gunshot cracked. Haynes screamed. Cole turned. She was down, shoulder bleeding, clutching the railing. He dragged her behind cover. They're cutting the main line. She gasped. Cole slammed his hand against the terminal. Come on. The screen flickered once more, and then connection restored. A voice filled the speakers. Not Shaw's. It was the broadcast feed. Breaking news. Leaked federal documents are spreading across major networks tonight, revealing a nationwide cover-up involving high-level Bureau officials. Cole exhaled, relief mixing with adrenaline. It's out. Haynes smiled faintly through the pain. You did it. No, Cole said quietly. We did. Below them, the contractors shouted orders, retreating as Bureau vehicles screeched into the compound. Sirens wailed again, the sound of truth finally catching up. Cole stood slowly, scanning the carnage. The monitors around him displayed the same headline repeating on every feed. Federal exposure. Corruption inside the Bureau. Haynes winced, gripping her shoulder. You think Shaw's running yet? He's already gone, Cole said. But he won't stay free. He helped her to her feet. Outside, dawn had fully broken, the sky streaked with red and gold. The warehouse lights flickered one last time before cutting out completely. They walked down the stairwell together, stepping past the crates that had almost buried the truth. By noon, the Bureau was in lockdown. Arrest warrants issued. Shaw disappeared from the network grid entirely. That evening, a new live stream went viral. The footage from the quarry, restored and unedited. It showed everything. For the first time, the world saw the truth without filters. And Ryan Cole, standing before a nation that had once watched him fall, said the only words that mattered. You can bury people. You can't bury truth. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The world already knew the rest. You watched it unfold, the chase, the truth, the fall of everything that hid behind polished badges and perfect words. You saw how far people will go to protect a lie, and how one choice, one refusal to look away, can turn everything. Ryan Cole didn't fight for power. He fought for the truth that power feared most, the kind that couldn't be edited, silenced, or rewritten by headlines. You saw him lose everything that made him official, only to keep the one thing that made him human, the will to stand when everyone else looked down. Because that's what justice really is. Not the noise of sirens or the flash of lights. It's the moment you decide to stop accepting the story you're given and demand the one that's real. Some people say exposure destroys, but sometimes it rebuilds. Sometimes it's the only way something honest can begin again. And as those files spread across the world, as headlines shifted and systems cracked, the question wasn't whether Cole would survive. It was whether the rest of us could still pretend we hadn't seen what he made us see. The truth doesn't wait for permission. Next week, we go deeper into a case that shook an entire division when a whistleblower's testimony revealed what really happens to evidence after it disappears from the chain of custody. Until then, stay aware, stay critical, and remember, the next cover-up you see might already be live.